Welcome back to TCP TV. I'm Anh Pham. Today we'll be covering your basic beginner airbrush strokes. I've created these airbrush strokes for you to become completely comfortable with your airbrush for whatever style of painting you plan on doing. So grab your airbrush and let's get started. Let's go into some practice strokes. Now there are three different elements that we need to look at and consider when practicing these strokes. The distance from the airbrush to the canvas, the speed at which you are moving across the canvas, and the amount of paint coming out of the airbrush with this trigger. So for skinny lines, you need to be close to the canvas, but with very little paint coming out with this trigger and moving fast across the canvas like this. As you pull the trigger back more paint will come out. This is when you need to add distance from the canvas and move a little bit slower. When the trigger is pulled back all the way, you will need to be even further back and moving slower across the canvas. So let's go into some dagger strokes. Start the skinny stroke close to the canvas and move quick to slow, pulling the trigger back more and more as you are moving across the stroke. Now do the opposite by moving slowly at a distance and move in as the trigger is pulled back less and less. Now for a combo thin to thick to thin, move the airbrush close to the canvas, then far away, then back and close, adjusting your speed accordingly. And let's try the reverse. Now let's practice moving the dagger strokes in a round motion. Same concept with speed, distance, and paint, except we're moving in a circular motion. Do the reverse. Now we can go skinny to fat to skinny. And thick to thin. To create dots of different thicknesses, we'll apply the same concept of distance, speed, and the amount of paint. In this exercise, you'll really see how the three elements affects your strokes. Small dots to thick. Close and very little of the trigger pulled back as the dots gets bigger. Pull the trigger back more and more, adding distance between the airbrush and the canvas. And the opposite, which is thick to thin dots, or where you start away from the The next practice strokes we're going to be doing is shading from dark to light and then light to dark. In this exercise, we'll again use the elements of distance, speed, and the amount of trigger pulled back. So at first, move slowly at a distance for dark shading, letting the paint build up. And as you get lighter and lighter, you're going to be moving quicker and less of the paint. Now for the opposite, we're going to be going from light to dark, so very little paint and moving quickly at first, and slow down as you get to the dark area. This next exercise is a little trickier than straight shading, as you will be using the round dagger stroke method to accomplish this. This is a good practice for any type of round or circular shading like faces, planets, skulls, etc. Start around the ball with very little paint, moving quickly, and as you increase the trigger, you're going to build up the shading underneath the ball. You can even add a little drop shadow. Maintaining the airbrush while spraying is a great thing to learn as you're painting. This lets you know what's exactly going on with your airbrush the entire time as any problems arise while painting. There's a little problem here. I like to do what's called coughing the airbrush on a rag away from the painting. Let the trigger back all the way and full blast to let any chunks that might be stuck or clogging the fluid nozzle, like so. Also, you can take your rag and wipe any dried paint buildup on the needle, and you can also back flush, which helps dislodge anything clogging the fluid nozzle or in here back, and you end it with some coughing. Do a little test pattern, and it's working again.